quick opening statement from Coach, and we'll jump into questions. We got two mics, one mic on each side.
I literally just talked to Bryce Ramirez. He's like honestly just out of his second surgery, and I know any of y'all that know Bryce, you could see the smile in his voice just because he's got such a great smile, and what an amazing kid. He's a tough guy too, because whenever I went over and on the sideline, whenever he got hurt, I mean, he's literally, I would have been screaming and crying and everything else, and he's saying, "What's next, Coach? What's next? Tell him what's next," and saying, "Hey, let's go win the game." And so just such a great guy. His teammates love him, and hopefully, I think it will be probably Wednesday or Thursday. He'll be back home here in Lubbock, and we'll be ready to rehab. He said, it's funny. He said, "What's next? It's Texas week. Let's go." To everybody, 24 hours is up, and that's our rule. And so we got to move on to the next week. Guys this week that won't be playing, that are really close. Honestly, I can see in the next couple weeks, if not next week, 2 weeks, is Adrian Fry. He's got a mixture of different things, of quad contusion and his knees banged up, but he's in really good shape, rehabbing. Cameron is really, really close. I'm expecting him back next week. Had a really good week last week running. And then Derek Lewis. Those three guys, are really close. Questionable this week, even though he was on the bike this morning, is Dimitri Moore. He's got a hamstring. And then, guys, we will get back to practice yesterday is Weston Wright. So excited to get him back. I mean, he's definitely a leader for us and brings a presence in that offensive line. Just a statement a little bit about Texas. I don't know Steve really, really well. I've got to know him a little bit through media days and different things like that. Really good guy. He's got a great reputation as a play caller. You can see it. I mean, he's definitely, their strength is what he can do with his skill players. And he has a lot of skill on that team. And so really excited to play against him. He really is one of the best player callers in the game. And so I know Coach DeRuiter has some history, just being on that side of the nation and in the Pac-12 at different times. I know they have some history together and knows him, and he has some great things to say about him. The two running backs are special. They're guys that really make that team go. They're physical. You could tell as the game goes on, they just get stronger with the carries that they get. So something that we really have to do a good job of is tackling this week and try to minimize the extra yards. Two really good receivers. Have a little bit of history with Whittington, just from the standpoint of, I got a kid out of Cuero at the same time that he went to Texas, and so spent some time recruiting there and recruiting him. And then, their young receiver who's All-American last year. Those guys are the playmakers. So they have the skill definitely to make that offense go, and it's going to be a challenge for us. The one thing that they have improved on, definitely, Pete, it's his second year as a defense coordinator there. They're playing better defense. He's doing a really good job. They're sound. They're tackling better. They added a piece, as an analyst with probably one of the best defensive minds in college football, and Gary Patterson, and you can definitely see, there's an influence there. I'm watching film, and you see him on the sideline taking notes, and so he's a good friend of mine. Coach Perry and Zarnell both worked for him, and they say, that's one thing they say. You could see that he's definitely there to really consult, and they're playing better defense, and you see why I think they're a better football team than what they were last year, especially at this point. So it's going to be a great test. The best thing about all of this is we're starting Big 12 play, and we definitely have everything in front of us. Excited to play Texas, excited to be back at home, excited to see everybody in red. And it's I definitely think that there's an advantage. I mean, I'm sure y'all have seen social media, and so we've got a old friend that used to coach here that's given Steve some advice. You know, I know that there's probably a little bit more animosity to him for different reasons, but it's fun to watch. I don't know if y'all are all into that, but I am. I love the pageantry and the back and forth and the excitement. And, you know, we get to play a conference opponent this week, and we're really excited to get ready for Texas. With that, any questions?
Coach, earlier this morning, Tony Bradford got named to the AFCA Good Works team. How important is it to have one of your student athletes really use their platform as a student athlete on and off the field?
I love you asked that question. I'm glad you did. First of all, I think there's, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there's 10 in the country, and we have one of them. And, you know, what Tony has done for this community and this university is amazing. The thing that I think student athletes are starting to see more and more that they truly have a voice, and there is a lot of power in that voice. I think you see that in the changes of rules, definitely see it in the changes of NIL, and they're a big part of that. And to have a guy that's so positive, that is a great role model, is, you know, huge for us. He's a great ambassador for Texas Tech, and definitely for the Big 12. So I was proud of him. You know, Matt let me tell him first, so I got a big old hug from him in the locker room, and then it came out today and happened to see him again in the locker room, and he was pretty fired up. He's proud of that award.
Go down here to the shot.
Coach, what do you hope that your offense learns from Saturday's game?
Don't throw it to the other team. You know, we had a 7%. It's amazing we were in that game. It shows a lot about our players' resiliency. It shows a lot about how much they care about each other, because when you turn the ball over 4 times, you shouldn't be in the game. You shouldn't have a chance to still be playing that close. And so it says a lot about them. We've got to protect the ball. You know, we've gone 2 games now that I think we've had 7 turnovers in 2 games. It's definitely, you know, it's one of those deals. We play a weird game with a weird ball. It bounces a lot of different ways, because I don't know if there's a team that emphasizes it more in practice. I know y'all have been out there and hear me yelling like crazy, ball security, whenever we're in our pat and go and our routes on air, and we're fanatical about it. And so it's really important. We're fanatical on the other side, and we're not getting the ball out, you know, and so we've got to do a better job of protecting the ball and taking it away. And then, you know, I think they've learned the last 2 weeks, you know, you just got to keep fighting. You got to play all the way through. I mean, I showed the slow motion view of Rabbit knocking the ball out and it going through the end zone, and trying to get these guys to understand that's our DNA. We're going to play from snap to whistle, and we're going to play as hard as we can. And at the end of that, if you do that, you're going to give yourself an opportunity. So, and it's a mixture. I'm going to be the first one to tell you when I say that, you know, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. I mean, Coach Kitley will be the first one to tell you that he has to do a better job preparing our quarterbacks. Our quarterbacks have to do a better job of identifying the looks. And then, you know, we've got to protect them and get the ball out on time, and we're going to do that. I mean, I think we have already started a good plan, and I think we'll be ready, and we'll do a better job on Saturday, putting us in a better situation.
Coach, do you have a basic philosophy on fair catches of what you would like to do inside of this line or inside of that line, or does that change kind of moving forward for you?
No, you talking about on kickoff return?
Yeah.
You know, the one, you know, I showed it to our coaches first, and then we talked about it as a team. We have a lot of FBI moments, football intelligence, and, you know, the one that we should have let go was either going to go out or it was going to go, you know, to where it's going to be a penalty on them. We should have let it go. You know, that's a bad decision on our part. It starts with coaching. The second part, as far as return-wise, you know, if it's in the end zone and you're deep 2 to 3 yards, we want to let it go. But if it's not in the end zone, we want to bring it out. We want to be very aggressive. We got good returners. I mean, when you watch that, we're literally, again, we showed that first to the coaches and then to the players. We're literally one guy away from every one of those returns, minus the one that we should have let go out, having big returns. I think we're second right now in the conference in returns, but the one thing, and we talked a little bit about, is the conference as an average is not the fair catch because it's going to be at the 25-yard line. And so it's kind of that philosophy. Our philosophy is we want to be aggressive. We'll just keep working on it. It's early in the season. I think we have a good return team and we had a good scheme. We just got to be better at the point of attack.
One last thing. Is McNamara okay, or is he dinged up a little bit?
No, he's good. He's good.
Go to Justin on your right, and then we'll go back up to Mason and Keith.
Yeah, Coach, does the game plan kind of change with some uncertainty at the quarterback position with over there for you?
No, I mean, they're both, I don't know. I guess Quinn had more stars or a higher rating, but I think they're, you're talking about 4- and 5-star guys that came out of Lake Travis and South Lake Carroll. They're groomed to be quarterbacks. Hudson Card was the starting quarterback last year. He did a great job against UTSA of converting on third downs whenever he needed to. I'm not for sure what it was, if it was an ankle or what, but, listening and reading everything, it was they all both practiced today. I guess they didn't last week, and so I'm not Quinn, but the other quarterback. And so Hudson's going to be ready to go. He's got a big arm. He's got good receivers, and so they're going to run the same offense. It's going to go through the running backs, and it's going to go through the two receivers. And so they have more than that. The big tight end out of Denton Ryan is really good. He's playing really, really well for them. But it's going to be the same thing.
What were your thoughts on Baron Morton's last few drives there against NC State? And I guess, is there any chance that we see him this weekend?
Well, I hope you see both of them. That's been the plan from the get-go. Donnie's good. Got a little banged up. He got a really awkward tackle. And it was kind of a deal of we, wanted to get Baron in. It seemed like a good time. We knew what we were going to have to do. It was going to be easier for him, kind of cleaning things up of what we were going to have to do. And so, I know it was only one play against Houston, but I've said we're going to play all three of them. One of them's hurt right now. And so for game 1, we played all 3. Game 2, we played the 2. And game 3, we played the 2. I expect them to play this week against Texas.
And what adjustments are kind of being made with a strong Texas defensive line to kind of get the run game more involved this week? One's going to help getting a vet back in Weston Wright. That allows us to play Jacoby and Landon in that right guard position, so I think that's going to help. Some of it is dictated on what they're going to allow us to do. We're an offense that's going to try to take what you give us. And so if you're giving us the run game, then we're going to run the ball. And, some of our run game is in the quick screens and everything like that. We do need to do that against them because they are big and physical. And so moving them sideline to sideline is only going to help us. But they do have good depth. But that will help whenever you're kind of counteracting some big defensive linemen.
Go with the Mason and Pete.
Coach, what's been your experience with the Texas Tech rivalry, maybe prior to you coming to Texas Tech or ever since you've gotten here?
Well, of course, I watched Graham and Crabtree in that game. I watched that game, and I understand the importance of the rivalry. Of course, seeing the basketball, how incredible that was. I think that has a mixture of two things. I think it's University of Texas, and then exactly who we're playing and the coach that they have. There and here. I didn't get to go to the game there, but I was there the night before and talked to a lot of our fans and, saw how fired up they were. It's great. You're playing, a good football team. It's Big 12. I'll tell you the first thing that we talk about is, yes, do we understand we're playing a logo, different logo? We're going to play a different logo next week. But at the end of the day, at 2:30, if we're not the best version of ourselves, we're not going to give ourselves a chance. And so we focus more on us than them, but it's exciting.
I'm sure we're going to be playing in front of a sold-out crowd. I hope they drink their beer and not throw it. If they're throwing it, I hope they're throwing it up, just the liquid in celebration and not throwing it on the field. That came out of the student section, and it was Texas Tech fans. I know we want to deflect sometimes, but that was happening, and that's not what we're about. But we're going to give, we're definitely going to give them a reason to celebrate, and it's going to be a really good game.
You mentioned Quinn a little bit before, too. Obviously, he was considering Texas Tech before he made his decision to go to Texas. What was your experience like meeting with him?
Well, I kind of have a little bit of history because being in that Metroplex and knowing Coach Dodge so well, getting to watch them. I watched it actually at whatever that Texas Live is because I couldn't go to the game, and Cedar Hill actually played before South Lake in the state championship, and so Debbie and my son went and watched him play, and then we met over there and watched the game. He's a really, really good quarterback. He's a great kid, and he's got a lot of arm talent. I hate it, man. I sit there and watch Tyler, and he gets landed on his shoulder, and then Quinn gets landed on his shoulder, and it's just like Bryce, man. It's part of the game. I understand we play a really physical and violent game, but man, I hate whenever players get hurt. I want to face whoever the best is. Like whoever is their best and whoever our best is, I want to go out there and play with those guys and let them, So I wished him a speedy recovery, and if he suits out this week and gets to play, that's going to be good. I'm excited.
And then Bijan Robinson, all said and done, could be in the mix for the Heisman. A lot of things makes him dangerous. What makes him the most dangerous to you?
He and Roshan, they do a good job with their stiff arm. They're very physical with their hands, opposite of what they're carrying the ball. They're always moving. Got really good vision. He has great vision. I mean, he's an NFL back. They don't choose those guys in the first round as much anymore, but he's definitely a guy that could be, and he should be. I definitely think that when you watch him play last year and this year, he's put together a campaign just as good as anybody else in the country.
All right, we'll go Pete and Jarrett right next to him right after that.
Coach, you talked about keeping the fans' emotions in check. Will you talk to your team about keeping things in check too? I mean, obviously this could be the last time Texas comes to play in Lubbock, and the emotions of the Big 12. What's the special message to the team?
Well, we talk all the time. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I've played these guys 5 times, and we really haven't been a part of a game that I felt was any more emotional than playing OU or OSU or K-State. So, I know our guys are excited, but we also talk all the time about don't beat yourself. And when you allow that to come in, then you're putting yourself in front of the family and the team. And so we'll talk about that. I definitely think that there was some familiarity with Houston players that had been here in the past, and we didn't have any issues in that game. I mean, our guys have been I haven't seen in 3 games where our guys have let their emotions get out of hand. I don't expect for it to happen this week. I mean, we're going to, just like Texas, we're going to let us go out there and play as hard as we can and be the best version of ourselves. And, at the end of the day, you always remember, winning the game's what it's all about, and can't put yourself in a bad situation. So we got to continue to focus on not beating ourselves.
And I know Nick Saban didn't know the rule, but will you make sure the guys don't do horns down?
I'm sure these guys know. It's crazy. Makes me laugh. I don't get it. I don't know who came up with it. I don't know who thought it was a smart idea. It really, truly makes me laugh that that's a rule, but it is a rule, and we're going to play by it. And so, yeah, I'll make sure I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
And then, Coach, there are things that are bigger than the game. I'm wondering if you saw what Sonny Cumbie did that had the Clemson coach saying he's more encouraged now in this world after what Cumbie and his team did.
Yeah, y'all know what I think of Sonny, man. I mean, I've made it clear of what he's done for this university, not only as a player, but what he did, to bridge this team and connect them with me. And it doesn't surprise me, man. That guy's a class act. I mean, I think it's great. You know, Bryce just tweeted out, and he was talking about the North Carolina State fans, but not only the fans, the administration. They had a big push. It was important, just talking to our doctors and talking to our trainers, that it was important that he get everything done there as far as speedier recovery. And, you know, I think their administration really pushed that and had great doctors. So, I mean, the guys that are in this for the right reasons, that love kids, that are trying to pour into those guys like Sonny Cumbie, you know, and of course Dabo. I mean, that's what it's all about, you know, and I'm not surprised, man. I love Sonny, and you know, that's something that he would do because he's first class.
So Jarrett and Don on the front row.
Can you give us an updated timeline on Shough, when he could possibly return?
He's in good shape. He's rehabbing right now. I think the earliest would be Oklahoma State. And then we have the bye. And so West Virginia. So one of those two. I mean, I don't see it. Of course, he won't play this week, but I don't see him playing against K-State. You know, but he's in a good place. I mean, he actually beat me here yesterday morning. Now, he didn't get off the plane at 4:30, so, you know, he got a little bit better, a lot more sleep. But he was already watching film from the night before and going through it. And so he's definitely very much engaged. He's in all meetings, but he's spending a lot of time with Drew getting ready, you know, to be back when he can come back.
And then the defense has played really well this season, including Saturday, but there was that weird play in the second quarter where it seemed like some defensive players let up there and the player was able to score. Did you ever get clarification from the players of what happened and what the mind?
Yeah, you know, the one we should have laid out early in that play, that was a great scheme. They did a really, really good job. I mean, that accounted for 31 yards of their rushing, not on just that one play, but on that scheme. You know, whenever I talked to Reggie, he was like, Coach, man, I thought I was fixing to get a penalty because I thought he stepped out. You know, and that's the tough thing. Everything is so geared to, of course it should be. When I say this, it should be player safety, that if you're anywhere in that white, you know, it's going to be a 15-yard penalty. And so he thought he had stepped out, so he pulled back. I mean, that was the first thing I said to him because it really bothered him whenever he saw it on film. And I said, well, there ain't anybody that can question your physicality, Reggie. So we know that you weren't not thinking that you couldn't take the hit right there.
And then the usage of timeouts in the fourth quarter, can you give us an idea of your thought process?
Well, if you can't save a full 40 seconds, then the way we believe is that you shouldn't use them. And there wasn't a point to save the 40 seconds. You know, you kind of go back and forth. I mean, I talked about it right after the game. You know, what do you do? 14:56 left in the game, and do we go for it on 4th and 8? It was a weird series of events because a play didn't happen because the time ran out. It would have been 4th and 3 instead of 4th and 8. But 4th and 8. And so you kind of go back to the numbers. We met yesterday and we talked through a bunch of football stuff, and that was one of them about punting right there. We were playing good defense, and there was a debate, and I still, am trying to think through the situation if I would have done something different. The problem is everybody's going to say, well, you had 14:56 left. We needed 2 possessions. We didn't get 2 possessions in the third quarter. So you're not guaranteed to get the 2 possessions. So at that point right there, you know you have the ball, and you know you have an opportunity to convert. And so, I wish we would have converted on 3rd and 8. I thought Kidley made a great call, and we just didn't execute. And then they dropped 8 on that 4th and 8, and we didn't get the first down. You know, the tough thing is whenever you start looking through stuff, everything's hindsight. And, of course, I'm one of those dudes that I'm going to dissect it until the end as they score on the very next play. So then you're like, okay, if you would have punted it away, what would have happened? And so well, would they have gone on an 8-minute drive like they did in the third quarter? That's just something that, you know, we took into account that you get the first down there, you still have the football, and that would have guaranteed that we would have been able to get 2 possessions to win the game.
Finish with Don.
Just following up on that for a second, Joy, when you were talking about the timeouts, I was looking back here through the play-by-play. I guess NC State took over like 8.5 minutes left and ran the clock down to about 2 minutes left. So you didn't feel like there's any point in there where using a timeout or a couple of timeouts would have put you in better position?
The problem again is, so when is it going to help you? If it doesn't help you get full 40 seconds, you should not use. Now, old school thinking, I mean, the first thing everybody's going to do is call a timeout on third down, and then they're going to have to punt. But again, if you've got 25 seconds versus 40 seconds, then you're losing seconds there. And so if you go through that series, either there's a point where we're not going to do that, or we felt like that it was better to have those 3 timeouts. Because again, how many possessions did you have to have at that point to win the game? You still had to have 2 possessions to win the game. So whether you got the timeouts then or where you got them at the end, it still was working out of how many possessions you had to have to win the game. You know, that's the tough thing right now. Is it's a mixture. It's a tough thing of that we do have analytics that now have come into football, which before you didn't. We have football. We have coaches like Lane Kiffin, who is 100% analytic. Dave Aranda, 100% analytic. We have been the first 3 weeks. And so you have that, and you have the old school. The problem is everybody, I think, needs the analytic book. You have a different book every time because you get a lot of criticisms on these old school thinkings, and not that you are, I promise you, I'm not saying that. But like you hear the commentators and everything like that, and yet they're not going back to the games that were lost because you used a timeout before you should have. They're not going back and looking at it. It's like the philosophy of taking the ball first in overtime. Well, that's only 54% if you win the game first in overtime. You're not taking into account that you didn't win the game in overtime, so now the analytics change for the next overtime. And so we went with that, you know, and going back, I mean, I'm definitely struggling. I'm old. I've done it a long time. I've always gone by my gut. And, you know, again, if I go back to that moment, I'll probably call a timeout, play defense, and see if we get the ball back with 2 possessions.
You said Kiffin and Dave Aranda as being 100% analytics. How would you describe yourself?
You know, I haven't been until last year, and I saw the benefits of what Coach Aranda did. And we meet every Thursday with Rob Ash, who was a head coach for 30-something years, and he's with Champion Analytics. And the philosophy and the understanding, I mean, we're talking through that situation the whole time, and whenever it went to that, we're talking through, can we get the ball back? When you go back and think right then, we gave up 2 field goals, short fields. We gave up a pick 6. So then it says right there, whenever I go back and look at it, that it would have probably been a good situation to punt the ball from the standpoint. But you asked me a question, if he's okay, he's okay. We had a 27-yard punt, and we had a 32-yard punt. Like, you know, at what point are you're sitting there? I know that we felt good about the 4th and 8, and we didn't convert.
How are y'all? Is there somebody on staff who's kind of in charge of analytics in real time, or how's that happening? How are those decisions made in that in-game situation? Or is there somebody in your ear saying we should do this here, or are you making the call?
No, it's a mixture of all of us. It's kind of, we got some old coaches, so it's a mixture of DeRuiter, and Coach Perry, myself, and then we have one of the guys in the box, you know, Kirby, our D-line coach, is right there with the book, and he is going through saying, you know, I mean, 4th and 8 is a go. 4th and 1 is a go. You know, if you go back and if I would have played like that, played old school football, which maybe I should have, 4th and 1 at the 28th, I should have kicked the field goal and it wouldn't have been a pick six and it would have been 13-3. I mean, you can dissect that game up and down because old school football, I mean, they punted on 4th and 1. Should I kick the field goal, you know, from the 28th earlier in the game? We went for it and ended up giving up 6 points.
Following up on a couple of guys, on Tyler, did he have any surgical procedure done?
He did. He ended up putting a plate in the shoulder to stabilize it. Again, it wasn't where it was last year, and that's the reason they decided to do it because felt like the healing would happen faster. You know, and he's moving around good, and I mean he's so positive, and like again, I'm excited that he's in the quarterback room trying to help these guys.
And on Bryce, back on Bryce for a moment, how many of your medical people have been with him or are still there with him?
So Steve, our trainer, went from the field to the hospital and has stayed all the way through all of this. His mom's there. She came in yesterday. His dad's there now, today. But Steve's been with him the entire time.
Which I was going to ask you. So he didn't have any family member at the game then?
No, she flew in, and I thought Debbie was going to fly out yesterday to see him, but she got to talk to his mom, and she felt good about that, and so it was good.
And jumping back and forth here, back to Tyler for a moment. Considering your quarterbacking has not been perfect, obviously, and you've indicated then that Tyler's not out for the season, what do you see as what the quarterback situation is or what his role is once we get to October 22nd?
And he's back. We'll open that thing back up, and you know, he was our starting quarterback. I mean, it's just like Bryce Ramirez made his first start over Josiah Pierre. I mean, the thing, you cannot have a brand that says you're the toughest, hardest working, most competitive, and then you feel good about your position that you're not going out and earning it every single day. You know, and that's everybody in this building. I mean, we talk about it all the time, you know, of extreme ownership and digging into who we are. I said it last week. I mean, out of a win, now all of a sudden everybody's looking around and we got beat, and did we dig in as much last week because we won as we are off a loss? And the challenge is you do it every day. And you do it all the time, making yourself better. And so I'm not going to – Tyler be the first one to tell you that he's not going to get it right whenever he's released, but he's going to have to come out and show that he's ready to go. And, you know, whoever puts us in the best position to win football games, that's going to be our starting quarterback. But if he's back, that means we're going to play 3 quarterbacks instead of 2. And I can't wait till he gets back because Zach does have a lot of fun formations with all 3 of them in the game at the same time. Y'all hadn't got to see them. We worked on them all camp and hadn't got to use them yet, so it'd be good.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Coach, we asked Coach McGuire about this earlier, but earlier this morning, Tony Bradford got named to the AFCA Good Works team. Just, you're his position coach, so how proud are you of him just using his platform as a student athlete to make a positive impact?
Well, Tony's, not just an outstanding football player, but a really outstanding person. He's got a fantastic disposition. He's a guy that is constantly looking outside himself, wants to serve as a police officer when he gets done with his playing career. He's a guy that always brings a positive attitude and is very much a teammate, wanting to help others on his team and do whatever it takes for the team. So for him to be named as something like this, I think it's very indicative of his character and a great compliment to him and of course, our football program.
Coach, could you give us your thoughts on Rabbits' play there late in the game when, they could have been walking in and that would have sealed the game?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we try to get out of our defense all the time. We ignore the scoreboard, we play till the whistle, and play through the whistle. And it would have been very easy for him to, let the guy go in, but he not only busted his tail to get to the ball, and we talk all the time about how we force takeaways, and we've not done a very good job of it so far, this season, but he absolutely did. We talk about 4 P's of takeaways, and one of them is purpose. He went over not only to go make a tackle, but with the purpose of getting that ball out. And the ball carrier had the ball in his wrong arm. He had it on the inside arm, and he went right after it and punched it out. Just a great indication of how he takes to coaching and strains his body to do the right thing, and good things happen when you do that. Was an example we showed our entire defense yesterday.
And do you have a chance to talk to Bryce on the field? I know, obviously, and just the whole situation, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was tough. I talked to him yesterday, and he's got an unbelievable disposition. His only concern was not for himself, but for his teammates. And, for a guy to go through what he went through, that's a traumatic injury. His concern was for everybody else. And, again, he's just a great example of what Coach McGuire's trying to preach about, thinking of others, not ourselves, being a great teammate, letting everybody know. He just tweeted out, he had his second surgery this morning that was successful, and he plans on being back. And I know it's going to be a long journey ahead of him, and certainly we're going to be there to support him. And he appreciates not only his teammates, but the entire Red Raider Nation that are keeping him in their prayers.
Coach, we know Texas has a couple great running backs and some good receivers. Do you shift your focus more to stopping the run or slowing down the pass?
Well, unfortunately for them, or for us trying to defend them, they're very, very balanced. Coach Sarkisian has been doing this a long time. He's one of the elite play callers in the country. If you want to try to just stop the running game, they've got a passing game as well that they're going to take the top off. They've got some guys that can really run with 8 and 4. So you can't just focus on one thing. You've got to defend the entire 53 and a third across the field and 120 yards of the field. So you got to be balanced in your approach on defense and be sound to everything.
Coach McGuire touched on it a little bit. Could you speak more about your history with Coach Sarkisian?
He was on the West Coast. Having been at USC when I was at Fresno, played against them. He was up at UW for a bit. So I've known Coach Sarkisian. I've always been very, very impressed with him as a person, as well as a guy who really understands offensive football and how to attack defenses. So we've got to do a great job of hopefully mixing things up and trying to, hopefully slow that quarterback down in his read progressions and give our front some time to get there. I thought we did a decent job last week with that. And so hopefully we can do the same thing this week.
Coach, you mentioned earlier about not creating turnovers, but the defense has been playing physical, getting pretty consistent pressure on the quarterback. Well, why do you think there's been a struggle of creating turnovers?
Sometimes it's by circumstance. We got pressure on the quarterbacks. We got to finish on the ball. I think Tyree got a couple positions where he couldn't really, rake on the football. He was, coming off of a block. But we got to get a second and third guy there to go after that ball. we're not seeing a whole lot of throws into coverage because we've got pretty tight coverage at times. And so sometimes it's just a function of who you're playing and what their attack is against you. But regardless of that fact, we're going to continue to harp on getting takeaways. Hopefully we can continue to get pressure on quarterbacks and make them make bad decisions. And when they do that, sometimes they kind of come in groves.
It seems like Malik's been targeted a lot the last couple of weeks, but has responded. How do you feel like he's played?
Really happy with how he played. He was going back to North Carolina, where he came from. And I think those guys made a purpose of trying to go after him. And he very much stood up to the challenge. We've got 2 long corners on our edges, and they do a great job in press. And because of their length, very good job of disrupting, what offenses try to do. And so we're going to continue to lean on those guys to do that kind of stuff. And then, of course, they've got to be smart enough when we do mix up coverages, what we're doing behind them.
I touched upon Tyree right there. You mentioned at the beginning of the season you could see him as a Sunday player. Where have you seen his progression so far, and I guess what's been the most impressive out of him?
Well, I think the biggest thing with him is he sets tremendous edges in our run game, which is one of the primary things we ask our edge defenders to do. And then when it's time to rush the passer, he can really collapse a pocket. The thing that I guess probably surprised me the most is how quick he is off an edge when the run's going away from him. When we have him chasing from the backside, we don't always do it, but when he chases, he can get there and make tackles. And yesterday at our unit meeting with the defense, I showed a number of clips of guys on our defense that had to strain to make plays. And we have got quite a few guys who are doing that. We've got some guys that have to improve in it, but he was used as a primary example a number of times of the plays where he's blocked, he crosses a block, and then strains to go make a tackle. And we got to get more of our guys playing like that. And I think he just does it naturally.
Bijan Robinson might be as good as it gets in the country when it comes to running backs. What makes him so dynamic to you?
Well, from what I've seen, he's probably the best one in the country. He's a very compact runner who is powerful, breaks a ton of tackles. He's a guy that seems to have tremendous vision, whether they're running the outside zone play on when to cut it, when he's running in traffic to make jump cuts or spins. And again, because he's kind of compact, people just bounce off of him. And then when he gets some speed or some space, he's got the speed to take it to the house. So you combine all that, it makes him, I think, a very NFL-looking running back. I think he's going to have a tremendous career in his future, and I'm just hoping that we don't add to it this weekend.
Yeah, Coach, McGuire kind of touched on it, but does the game plan kind of change with a little bit of uncertainty in their quarterback room with Hudson Card or Quinn Ewers?
I don't see a discernible difference between the quarterbacks. We're breaking down games from last year, all the games this year. I think both of them have similar skill sets. I'm sure they have some nuances that are different, but it's not like you've got a quarterback who they're going to have a running game built around who throws it. Both these guys can throw the ball really well. I think that, number one, probably when things break down, gives you that element of moving the sticks with his legs that the other guy doesn't. But they're both excellent quarterbacks, highly recruited guys, typical of the guys that go to the University of Texas. We know we got a challenge ahead of us because of their skill set and, of course, how they coach them.
You kind of touched on Malik Dunlap already, but just the whole secondary as a whole has been performing pretty well. Just kind of what's gone into their performance and in the success in the defending the pass.
Well, I think it's two things. I think when we came in the springtime, we thought that they could be a strength. We've got a lot of veteran guys. Now it's hurt not having Adrian, having him out. But, we've got guys like Malik who didn't start at the start of the season, who stepped in, and he's playing like a starter. And we knew he was going to be in the rotation. Kobe Minor at the end of the last game, stepped up, and he's going to continue to earn more reps. I think Coach Yates is one of the premier secondary coaches in the country. He does a great job of, very carefully explaining to our defensive backs where our stresses are in a coverage, where our strengths are, how to overplay our strengths and minimize our weaknesses in particular coverages and switch leverages up. And our guys are really, really smart veteran guys that understand that and want to be coached hard. And so that's what's fun about having our guys is that they don't think they've got the answers. They're sponges, and Coach Yates is filling that sponge up.
Coach, I know we mentioned Daedron's play, but can you just speak to the Ironmen that Reggie Pearson and Rashad Williams have played with Adrian out and having to play a little bit more snaps than maybe they were expected to?
What are you saying, Rashad and Reggie?
And Reggie, just them playing a little bit more reps in the game.
Reggie's a starter for us at safety. That's why I was a little confused. But
yeah, I'm just saying like they played a lot of snaps essentially. Like Reggie played most of the game, and Rashad, yeah.
Gotcha, because
yeah.
Well, both those guys have to step up, and you know the encouraging thing for us, particularly last week, was they both did step up. You know, I think we've got guys, whether it's the safeties or corners, that can play man coverage. They understand when, you know, we are putting them on the island, how to play to their leverage. And I think, you know, Malik was targeted probably half dozen times on shots and double moves, and he was up to the challenge every time. So, you know, that was really, really impressive to see that happen.
Anything else for Coach DeRuiter? All right, we'll finish with Don here.
It's coming.
I was just going to ask you, you mentioned the 4 P's of takeaways a moment ago, and you said one was purpose. What are the other 3?
Oh, okay, yeah. We talk about preparedness, you know, knowing our defense and then knowing who we're playing so we can play our fastest. Physicality, you know, the actual act of punching, ripping, stripping the ball away. Purpose, and then our last P is what we call population, getting more of our guys to the ball than they have. And when you can get a ball on the ground because of physicality and purpose and those type of things, if we got more guys around it, the way this ball is shaped, it bounces in funny ways, we got a better opportunity to get the takeaway. So those are our 4 Ps.
All right, thank you.
Zach, what are your thoughts on Donovan's play? 4 sacks in this game, but maybe a little bit different than the Houston game.
Yeah, you know, I mean, clearly there's some stuff we still got to work on. You know, I think he battled all game. You know, one of them sacks, you know, unfortunately our running back missed the corner blitz right in his face, and he just gets hit. One of them, they had a perfect play call defensively for our pass protection that we had for that specific play. You know, there's a couple that he probably wants back that we could have gotten the ball out of our hands quicker. You know, the biggest thing is we got to protect the football. You know, I'm sure y'all heard it by Coach McGuire. You know, if we're turning the ball over 2 or 3 times at my position, at that quarterback position, it's going to be hard to win games. So that's the biggest thing we're trying to move forward with, just protecting the football.
Late, but what are your thoughts on Barron's play as well, and especially if he needs to see more time?
Yeah, he came in and did what he was supposed to do. You know, clearly late in the game right there, we kind of knew exactly what we were going to get, you know, wide rush, drop 8 type of deal, and I thought he came in and handled himself well. You know, he moved the ball, you know, which ultimately we kind of knew it was going to be more of keep the ball in front of you type deal at that point in the game. But, you know, Donovan had taken a few hits at that point, and we just kind of felt like it'd be a good opportunity for Barron to come in and kind of show us what he can do, and I think he came in and did a really good job.
We'll go to the other side of the room first.
Coach, we saw Tharp get some more snaps on Saturday. What's he been doing to get on the field a little more?
Yeah, you know, he was a guy that was probably going to be our starter from kind of the jump, and battled a few injuries throughout fall camp, and Henry Teeters, you know, clearly had a really good spring in fall camp as well. So he kind of came in, and Mason just continued to get better and get a little bit back in shape from the time he missed. And he's a big target, you know, so he does a really good job in both the run game and the passing game. And just wanted to, you know, get him involved in some of those 11 personnel sets, and just kind of how the progressions went, the ball kind of went his way.
And we know you've got some roots here. You coached here in the past. What's the rivalry with Texas meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I mean, you know, clearly just being an in-state rival that we've had forever. And, I look back whenever I was a junior in high school in the 2008 game here and some of those things. But, at the end of the day, it's a Big 12 opponent, and we just got to get ready to play Texas this week.
We'll go to Stan, followed by Jeff.
Who are some of the guys on tape that you've seen at Texas that have really stood out to you, and what makes them special?
Man, a lot of them, you know. I mean, you look at them, the 4 down front, very physical. You know, I want to say the nickel, going blank on his name, number 23, I want to say he's Big 12 Defense Player of the Week. You know, he had a pick 6 against UTSA this last week. You know, they kind of do some different stuff schematically. You know, Gary Patterson's there as the associate to the head coach or whatever that exact role is, and I'm seeing a little bit of Gary Patterson DNA on that defense a little bit now compared to something that it was a little bit more last year. But man, they got great personnel, you know, as they do every year. So it's going to take, again, we're going to have to come out with a great game plan. Our guys are going to have to play hard.
Coach, when an interception is thrown, there's one of 3 factors that go into it. Quarterback makes a bad throw, wide receiver either doesn't run the right route or doesn't complete the route, or a defender makes a play. How would you describe those 3 interceptions from Saturday?
You know, one of them I felt like it was a bad decision by us. The 4th and short was not a great decision by us. One of them later in the game, I felt like our receiver could have kept his route moving a little bit, and then on another one, I felt like we were trying to sit the receiver down in the hole. So there's a little bit of everything, but at the end of the day, that reverts back to the details and some of those things, and just understanding certain scenarios during the football game and trying to keep ourselves into the right play and ball placement and some of those things.
And in this last game, it would be fair to say that the offense was frustrating, not being able to do what they were trying to do. Is there anything positive from this weekend that you guys took from the tape, or is it pretty much a straight whitewash of this is not what Texas Tech offense looks like?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's hard to go back and look at it, but when you really go back and look at our running backs, our running backs ran really hard. You know, we had a couple missed blocks on a couple that we went backwards on some first downs, but we also had some really big runs. And then, you know, kind of as the game went later, and this reverts back to me and us not getting it done offensively, you know, we touched the ball really one time in the 3rd quarter. And so kind of you get to the very, very end of that 3rd quarter with just a few seconds on the clock, and at that point we were down, I want to say it was 23-7, and so we kind of felt like, hey, we got to throw the ball to get back in this thing, and that's kind of why you saw us get away from the running game. But we had some big runs. You know, we had 1 explosive, and we had 2 that were a yard less than an explosive run. So we had some holes there. We just got to continue to clean up our targets at O-line and at the tight end there. And our kids fought, man. I mean, you know, clearly it was not an offensive showing that we want to have. But at the end of the day, our kids kept battling, and we never felt like we were out of it. You know, kudos to our defense for keeping us in the game.
Going up against Texas defense, how are you going to ensure coverage from the offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, part of that's back just to me. You know, I've got to get a little bit, maybe some more max protection, maybe some pocket movement, and some of those things, maybe some quick game, try to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. You know, a lot of that just reverts back to, again, just kind of going back and doing the simple things, you know, quarterback going through progression, O-line blocking the right person, and then schematically as well, like I said, with me moving the pocket some screen work and some of those things too. Just trying to get the ball to the quarterback's hand will help take some pressure off those guys up front.
We'll go to Justin, then Jarrett, then Mason.
Yeah, Coach, we saw Tharp, you kind of touched on it already, but we saw Tharp get his most targets this year on Saturday. Is that kind of become more part of the plan this coming week and into the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, you know, at this time, kind of every Monday, I'm in the middle of a game plan still, and we're still trying to figure out exactly the best way to attack these guys. But last week, we really liked a lot of our 11 personnel sets against them, and we, you know, again, later towards the game, we got in a little bit more 10, and we felt like we needed some more speed on the field and some of those things. But like I said, Mason's been doing really, really good and practicing very well. Clearly, he's a big target, so, you know, going to continue, as far as I'm concerned, trying to find ways to implement him as much as I can, because again, he's kind of a mismatch at times, so we can try to get him the ball.
And is there any kind of adjustments that you're trying to make to get the running game more involved, maybe going out to the outside a little more?
Yeah, again, you know, that was kind of tough this week. I mean, I know y'all saw their safeties are downhill guys, so we didn't really love the lateral runs as much, some of the outside zone stuff and some of that as much. And same thing this week, you know, we got to see kind of exactly how they're going to play it. But at the end of the day, what we're really trying to find out is what sets, when I say sets, what formations, whether that's no matter what personnel, but how can we formation these guys where we get a good box? We feel like we can have certain runs we can get to this week.
Hey, Coach, do you consider your offense to be like a true air raid offense or not?
No, we're very multiple. You know, you're going to see some old air raid concepts still being ran with mesh and Y cross and the 4 vertical schemes and some of the quick game concepts as well that you know, Mike Leach and those guys are still running. But you're seeing us in some 11 personnel and 12 personnel, and the true air raid guys, you don't really see them guys in that. You know, I still study Coach Leach's offense to this day, and I mean, he's in 20 personnel or 10 personnel 100% of the snaps. You know, so to me, that's where you see the difference. Compared to kind of what we're doing, and a lot of the limbs from the air raid tree, if you will, that have kind of moved a little bit more to some 11 personnel and gap scheme runs and some of those things that Coach Leach and those true air raid guys don't do as much of those things.
And then what kind of matchup does the offensive line have against Texas's defensive line, and what does it mean to get Weston Wright back this week?
Well, first, you know, huge to have Weston back. You know, I mean, he's no one on our offense has played more snaps than him. So just having a guy that's been there, that's a veteran, you know, clearly helps having him back. And he's had a really good season those first 2 games till he got injured. But it's good to have him back. Again, you know, it's going to be a great matchup. Like I said, they've got 4 really good ones, and they do a really good job of rotating those interior 2. You know, they really got a 4-man rotation at their defensive tackle position. They rotate those guys in to try to keep them fresh. So, again, it's going to be a really big matchup for us. And again, you know, it starts with me as far as schematically, how can I help, you know, protect those guys as much as possible. You know, I mean, we're going to have our times where it is 5-man protection, and we've got to own our guys and win our one-on-ones, but at other times, you know, I can move the pocket and take a little bit off those guys. So huge matchup this week, as it is every week. You know, I think when you look at almost every game, you know, I always say that it comes down to the quarterback in the trenches, you know. If you win the trenches and you can have good quarterback play, you're giving yourself a chance.
Coach, Ryder Gardy has the same amount of receptions as he had last season, and Taj has already almost doubled it. Why has it been important to you to work the running backs into the receiving game this year?
Yeah, I just think it's just an extension of our run game. You know, I mean, there's going to be some times where it's just tough sledding running the football. So how do you get those guys involved? Because those guys are very dynamic when the ball's in their hands. Just kind of how I like to set up the offense anyway. I think that's just important to get those guys touches. Because, again, you get those guys in space one-on-one where they can make people miss. So you're going to continue to see that as the year goes on. You know, clearly we're trying every way we can to run the ball better. But regardless of that, you're going to see those guys catch the ball in the backfield.
Coach, we're about a month in, and specifically for Donovan, following up on that, it's been an interesting start to the season for him. Mm-hmm. How much has he grown, really, in your opinion, and what do you think he's learned about himself specifically, whether it's the way he plays or the way he sees the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's growing up every week. I mean, you know, people don't realize that he really hadn't played that much football yet. You know, again, he came in week 1 and lit it up, you know, and then, you know, week 2 he came out and it was tough sledding at times against, again, a really good defensive front and a great defensive coordinator. And then last week, he hasn't been in that kind of environment either, you know, which was really good for him, for us, for our team. So he's continuing to grow every week, and, you know, and we're clearly not perfect, and we got a lot of work to continue to do. But you know, a month in, you know, he's continuing to get better, and that's all you can ask for a young guy that's, like I said, hasn't played a lot of football. And I think you're just going to continue to see him grow and grow as the season goes on.
Coach McGuire said that when Tyler comes back, that basically whoever would be the best at the position would be the starting quarterback. And I'm just curious if you're at a point in practice where that's an open competition moving forward between Donovan and Barron, or if Donovan is the clear-cut starter.
Yeah, you know, we've kind of got to the point where those guys are really splitting the reps pretty much. Donovan's been getting a few more, but Barron's been doing, again, a tremendous job during the week. And so we're going to kind of continue that and go into the game kind of the same way. As far as when Tyler gets back, you know, that's, to be honest with you, that's kind of the last thing I've been thinking about. You know, clearly I love Tyler and would love to have him right now as well, but you know, we're looking at 2 to 3 weeks before he gets back. So at this point right now, I got to focus on Donovan and Barron and what helps us beat Texas at the end of the day.
Coach, you mentioned Donovan was a bit banged up at the end of the game. How is he feeling right now?
He's all right. He's all right. You know, he took a couple shots during the game, and I think that's going to kind of be him. You know, it's kind of his style of play anyway, you know, because he is a runner. You know, we really only had 2 called runs for him throughout the game. But just as far as his elusiveness, now he likes to scramble and get out of the pocket. He's going to take a few hits. And it was kind of really that freaky one that he kind of got horse-collared look from the back. But he's fine. You know, we practiced last night and he was out there. He's going to be ready to go.
And ball security has been a big point of emphasis this week with the team. What else have you been like kind of ingraining in their minds in preparation for this game?
Yeah, toughness and physicality in the run game. We've got to play with better pad level up front. And then, you know, we've done a pretty good job for the most part of, you know, ball security as far as ball carriers. It's more of throwing the interceptions are the things that we've got to clean up. Because, again, you look back at it, it's 6 in the last 2 games, and that's unacceptable, and we got to make a huge leap of improvement in that area.
So one last thing. So regardless of practice this week, Donovan trots out there to start on Saturday?
As long as everything goes as planned, that's the plan, yes, sir.
All right, we'll finish with Don over here.
Following up on Tyler's timeline for a moment, Joey said earlier that the earliest possible time for him to return, he said it'd be the October 8th game at Oklahoma State. Then you have the bye, or possibly the October 22nd game at West Virginia. From your perspective, a quarterback who misses 6 games, what's the realistic expectation for when he could be viable to jump back in, just in terms of getting the timing and rhythm back?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. You know, I'll be honest, I've never really been in this scenario when it comes to a guy that kind of has that 6 week injury or so that comes back, and you know, so it'll be interesting to see. You know, clearly mentally, he's in every meeting, so he's going to be ready as far as the mental piece goes. But the physical piece that's a great question. You know, again, because I haven't in my career been around that quite yet, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes for him. But if anybody's going to be mentally and physically prepared, it's going to be Tyler Shough. I know that for a fact.
And since that's an upper body injury, he's able, or when or is he able to do, you know, running and conditioning type stuff?
I want to say it's either this week or next week. Again, I haven't kind of crossed that path. You know, I know we're not having him this week, and so kind of more so my focus is on the guys we got right now, trying to figure out a way to beat Texas. So, I can't really answer that question for you.
All right, we'll wrap it up right there. Thank you, Coach.